My husband of 20 years threw hurtful words at me, saying it was my fault we didn't have kids, calling me defective. That was when I realized I couldn't stay with him any longer. Now, he's off dreaming about a new marriage. And maybe God saw this cruel behavior. Perhaps that's why something happened to him. My name is Lisa. I'm 45 years old, and I work as a secretary at a law firm. My husband and I have been married for almost 20 years, living a simple life together. We both wanted children, but it never happened, mostly due to issues on my side. I tried every treatment I could, draining myself physically, emotionally, and financially, but nothing worked. When I turned 40, we finally decided to stop trying. My husband still wanted kids and urged me to continue, but I was exhausted, and the costs were piling up. With the cost of retirement looming, I suggested that we stop the treatments and focus on enjoying our lives together instead. Reluctantly, he agreed. From then on, we decided to live for ourselves. But even now, 5 years after stopping treatments, I feel guilty and sad that I couldn't have children. One day, I decided to go to a school reunion after about 10 years. My husband thought it would be good for me to take a break, so I planned to stay overnight at a hotel nearby, making it feel like a mini vacation. Since we married, I'd hardly ever gone out on my own. Most of my life was wrapped up in those infertility treatments. This little getaway felt like a rare luxury. At the reunion, I had fun reconnecting with old friends. "Lisa, long time no see, you look a bit slimmer than before," one friend commented. She was right. I had lost about 22 pounds over the last decade. "I'm so jealous. I've gained 33 pounds since getting married and having kids," she said. Even though it was small talk, comments like this stung a bit. "Lisa, any kids?" another friend asked. "No, it's just the two of us," I replied, trying to keep things upbeat, even though it was a sensitive subject. "Oh, I'm sorry for bringing it up," she quickly apologized, and we moved on, trying to keep things light and fun. Then, one friend shared a story that surprised me. "My son almost got caught up in a marriage scam recently," she said. I was shocked. "A scam?" I asked. "Yes, he was asked to lend $20,000 because they were supposedly getting married, but luckily it didn't work out," she explained. "My son didn't have enough money to pay that much, so he came to us for advice," my friend continued. "That's how we found out it was a scam. The woman disappeared after that." It was terrifying. I was shocked that something like this had happened so close to home. Thankfully, her son had a new girlfriend now, and his parents felt relieved. The reunion went smoothly, and when it ended, I decided to skip the after party and head back to my hotel. I enjoyed a quiet drink alone, then remembered I hadn't checked in with my husband. It was only 10 p.m., so he'd probably still be awake. I tried calling home several times, but he didn't pick up. Maybe he'd gone to sleep early, I thought, brushing it off even though I had an uneasy feeling. Maybe it was just a woman's intuition. After that night, my husband started coming home very late on weekdays, usually drunk. He'd stumble in, throw his shoes off, and collapse on the living room floor. "Show some respect, I'm home," he'd mumble in a drunken slur. For what, exactly? I thought to myself, picking up his shoes and clothes. One night, he mumbled, "Alyssa is cute, isn't she? If only you were as young as Alyssa." Alyssa? Who was Alyssa? What did he mean by "if only you were young"? By the time I thought to ask, he was already snoring. Could he be cheating on me? My uneasiness from that night at the reunion was turning into a real suspicion, but I kept telling myself, no, my husband wouldn't do that. He's a decent man. I tried to brush it off as drunken nonsense. But he kept leaving early on weekends, coming back late and drunk. This happened so often that I had to ask, "You've been out drinking almost every night. Are we doing okay financially?" "Mind your own business," he snapped. "It's my money, I'll do what I want with it. I've got savings from before we got married. But we need to save for our old age. We'll be in trouble later if we don't." "Then you save up," he said bitterly. "I already spent too much on treatments, all because you're defective." Even if he was drunk, I couldn't believe my husband would talk to me this way. His attitude towards me was changing, and I began to wonder if I'd become more submissive since we stopped treatment. His hurtful remarks were increasing. "Since you can't have kids, you should at least show me more affection," he'd say. With each selfish comment and careless spending, my love for him faded a little more. I remembered how kind he used to be, caring for me when I was struggling through treatments. Would he ever be that husband again? After 20 years, I started to question what our marriage really meant. Then, one day, things changed suddenly. Lisa, we need to talk, he said one evening, sitting on the couch with a serious look. What's going on? Why the formality? I asked. I want a divorce, he said bluntly. What? You're joking, right? Where's this coming from? Divorce had never crossed my mind. Sure, we had issues to work through, but ending the marriage? I never thought it would come to that, but maybe he'd been thinking about it all along. After 20 years, you suddenly want a divorce? Why? I asked, trying to understand. You're really clueless, aren't you? He sighed, looking at me with disdain. I've wanted kids all these years. I feel like I've been cheated out of fatherhood because I got stuck with someone defective like you. Did you ever think about my feelings? He pounded the table, speaking in an angry, arrogant tone. I felt a wave of sadness and frustration. That's not fair, I said, almost in tears. We both agreed to stop the treatments, remember? No, you decided to stop. I never wanted to give up on having a child. Why hadn't he told me this before? Just as I was trying to process his words, he pushed some papers across the table. Here, sign these divorce papers, and I won't have anything else to say. I stared at the papers, shocked. What, you're serious? Yes, I'm serious, he said smugly. I'm already planning to remarry. What, remarry? My mind raced. Are you having an affair? Oh, it's not an affair. Once we're divorced, I'll marry her. She's 20 years old. He said this with a satisfied smile. A 20-year-old? My heart sank. Alyssa, she's so sweet and cute, the perfect wife. Not like you. That's when it hit me. Alyssa was the name he'd drunkenly mentioned before. My intuition had been right. Then he showed me a picture of Alyssa. As I looked closely, I could barely contain my laughter. Was he serious? This couldn't be real. But I held back, keeping my expression calm. I wasn't ready to let him in on what I was thinking just yet. So, you really want a child that much? I asked. Yes, since you can't have kids, what choice do we have? You'll agree to the divorce, won't you? He replied confidently. I pretended to look more upset than I felt. Sure, it hurt when he first brought up divorce, but now, seeing how foolish he was, I felt like this was the best decision. Maybe this was some kind of divine sign to move on. I signed the divorce papers and left him behind, thinking he'd regret this one day. Time would tell. Fast forward a year after our divorce. Lisa, please help me. A shabby-looking man approached me as I was heading home from work. Excuse me, who are you? I asked, genuinely not recognizing him at first. It's me, Lisa. I need your help. It was my ex-husband, though he was barely recognizable. He looked worn down, his cheeks hollow, and his clothes in bad shape. Long time, no see, I said, surprised at how much he'd changed. Please, Lisa, could you introduce me to a lawyer at your firm? I can't just do that out of the blue. Lawyers charge fees, you know, I told him. I don't have that kind of money. Please help me, he pleaded. Curious and feeling a bit sorry for him, I agreed to listen to his story at a nearby cafe. Before he could say much, I asked, did that girl, Alyssa, run off? He looked shocked. How did you know? Just as I thought. When he had shown me a picture of his new girlfriend, Alyssa, I'd immediately recognized her from my school reunion. She looked exactly like a woman my classmate's son had been scammed by. At the reunion, my classmate had shared her photo, warning everyone about this young woman who was a con artist. Her name then had been Sally, though I assumed even that was fake. So you did know about Alyssa? I asked him, almost amused. Well, yes, he admitted, defeated. Then he began explaining what happened. So you really want a child that badly? I asked. Yes, since you can't give birth, what else can we do? You'll agree to the divorce, won't you? He said coldly. I pretended to look more upset than I actually felt. Sure, I'd been hurt when he first mentioned divorce, but now, seeing how foolish he was, I felt like leaving him was the right choice. It was almost as if some higher power was guiding me to do this. I signed the divorce papers and left him behind, thinking he'd regret this someday. I'd just wait and see. Fast forward a year after the divorce. Lisa, please help me. A scruffy-looking man approached me as I was heading home from work. Excuse me, who are you? I asked, genuinely not recognizing him. It's me, Lisa. I need your help. It was my ex-husband, though he was barely recognizable. His face looked hollow and he was dressed poorly. Long time, no see, I replied, surprised at how much he'd changed. Please, could you introduce me to a lawyer at your firm? I can't just do that without reason. Lawyers charge fees, you know, I said. I don't have that kind of money. Please help me, he pleaded. I could tell he was having money troubles, and I felt a bit sorry for him. Out of curiosity, I agreed to listen to his story at a nearby cafe. Well, actually, he began. But before he could say more, I interrupted. Did that girl, Alyssa, run off? He looked shocked. How did you know? Just as I thought. When he'd shown me a picture of his new girlfriend, Alyssa, I had recognized her from a photo at my school reunion. She looked exactly like a young woman who had scammed a classmate's son. At the reunion, my classmate had shared her picture to warn everyone about this con artist. Her name then had been Sally, though even that was probably fake. So you knew about Alyssa? I asked, almost amused. Well, yes, he admitted, defeated. Then he started telling me what had happened since. Alyssa had cleverly avoided taxes by keeping her gifts from my ex-husband under the $11,000 limit. That's why he thought she was a good girl who didn't ask for expensive gifts. She knew exactly how to work the system. So, what should I do now? He asked me, looking lost. I don't know, maybe consult a lawyer, but it'll cost you, I replied. Hearing this, his shoulders slumped. I've already spent all my savings. The woman I loved ran off. And I can't even face my coworkers. I bragged to them all about marrying a younger woman. His miserable expression was almost pitiful, but it was hard to forget that he'd brought this on himself. Lisa, it's my fault. Please come back to me. I realize now that you were the only one who truly cared about me. I don't even want kids anymore. I'll let you do whatever you want. You must have been lonely too, right? Did he still think I loved him? That part of my life ended half a year ago. It was time to remind him of reality. It's been a year. Don't you think it's a little too late for this change of heart? Lisa, are you going to abandon me? He asked, looking desperate. You were the one who wanted the divorce, remember? You're the only person I can rely on, he mumbled, looking utterly defeated. I decided to offer him a small favor. All right, then, how about I call up a lawyer friend? Lisa, thank you. I knew I could count on you, he said, teary-eyed. The lawyer who came to meet us at the cafe was Mr. Johnson from my firm. John, over here, I called, as he approached. Lisa, who's this? My ex-husband asked, sensing something was up. This is Mr. Johnson. We've actually been dating for 6 months now. So, what advice do you need? I replied. My ex-husband looked dazed. Oh. I think that's all for now, he stammered before hurrying out of the cafe. He couldn't afford the legal help he needed, so he gave up and accepted his fate. I later heard that word had spread through his office about his bad luck, dumped by both his fiancée and his ex-wife. Apparently, one of his colleagues had overheard everything at the cafe. Now, he's scrambling to find someone new, terrified of being alone in his old age. Later, Mr. Johnson asked me, who was that guy, anyway? I told him the whole story and apologized for dragging him into my plan. Sorry for the trouble. No worries, Lisa, glad I could help. By the way, are you free for dinner? He asked. Caught off guard, I felt a bit flustered. A fresh start in my 40s, it wasn't such a bad idea. Yes, I'd love to, I replied, feeling a spark of excitement. I had a feeling that the future was about to get a lot brighter.